My guest now, as we continue our program, research for the evolution of pan, is Mr. Clive Bradley. Clive is the arranger, am I right, Clive?
Arranger of Desperados.
Okay, arranger for Desperados. This year, 1982 Panorama, and listening to Desperados, especially on that final night, you turned the whole people of this nation into a shell that they had to applaud you. They had to give you what's the right of a king. What did you do?
Actually, the most important thing we did was not to become fazed by all the controversy and stuff like that. But in fact, we didn't do too much work on the tune itself. I probably completed a couple of parts which had needed to be completed because the introduction wasn't as it was on the preliminaries, and the ending was a little different, and there were certain parts in between which were reinforced. But there's not that much work that we did put into the tune.
Just that the players played with a tremendous great deal of intensity.
Yeah, actually, there's not even a tremendous great deal of intensity. I'm looking at them on the TV. To me, as a spectator, it seemed that they were more relaxed than any other time that I knew them perform. But I think what did it was the fact that we rehearsed for about maybe 20 hours between that night, the semi-final night, and the final night. We had actually had learned new parts which we had to put into the tune, and we decided, no, we wouldn't put them in. I don't think we needed them. And actually, I don't think we really did need them. What we needed was a good performance, a good relaxed performance, not at the usual speed, the usual hurry kind of panorama thing, but a relaxed arrangement where the people could have heard what was in the music, which they weren't hearing before. I mean, these things were there from the origin, but they never could have heard it because of the way the thing was played and the way how the band was lined up on the stage. This is a very, very important thing. This is the first year I actually noticed, got involved in the lining up of the band itself on stage, because I usually stay out of that. That's not my domain. But it is the first year I really observed the difference that the lining up could make with the audience. And actually, I had criticized the lineup on the semi-final night, but then again, Rudolph, no, I ain't no expert in lining up, so he wouldn't listen to what I had to say.
But tell me about your technique. You write songs for Calypsonians. You write music and so on. You take this music, and yet you have the ability to write music for pan. Is there a difference? How are you able to handle this adaptability?
Well, actually, if you know music, like if you know a little bit of theory and stuff, you would realize that music is music. What any music is played on any instrument. An attempt could be made to interpret it on any other instrument, right? Now, the pan is an imitative instrument. It's an instrument which is trying to imitate conventional instruments. It might be doing so subconsciously, but it's in fact doing so. So it is not very difficult for me, knowing theory and playing conventional instruments, to transfer my knowledge onto the pan. All one has got to do is to be able to relate some pans to either one or more of the conventional instruments it is trying to imitate. Like you want to imitate a violin sound, so you use a tenor pan, which has the range pretty much where a violin is. You want to get a sound of a guitar, you use the guitar pans or the second pans or both, or maybe another section. What you try to do is to imitate the sound that you're actually hearing. That is how I do it. Now, another guy who doesn't play conventional instruments is probably doing it a different way. This is how I do it. I relate. I can't play any. I mean, I could play the pan, but I'm not a pan man. Like I can't sit down like them guys do it. But I know how to play the pan. But a pan man now, a guy who doesn't know how to do any conventional instruments, would be hearing it differently to how I do.
So you feel he would have a setback? I mean, if he doesn't know to play these instruments, you think he might have a setback in making an attempt to imitate that sound?
No, actually, in certain aspects of the thing, he has a decided advantage over me, in that the physical configuration of the pan, he knows, I don't. So there would be passages where I would arrange where the pan man would have to cross both hands over that center stem that when you're playing two pans, you know, there's a center stem that you got. Now, if the passage is too fast, it would become physically impossible for that guy to do it. So what usually happens with me is sometimes when I do give them a passage where they have to cross both hands so quickly that it becomes difficult, if not impossible, I have to go and just rethink that little piece. Whereas the guy who knows the pan, he knows beforehand that the guy can't do it, so he will, he will take care of that before. But I mean, it's not too much of a problem because it's something I can see right away, you know, as I'm giving him the part, I see that this guy has to go over here. I say, no, this can't work. So let me just rethink the part and do it. That's it. But he has a decided advantage over me in that way. My advantage over him in this, I probably listen to more music than he does. I know more theory than he does. And playing with conventional instruments, you get an opportunity to play very many different types of music, which enlarges your vocabulary, so to speak.
Clive, tell me, what do you think of pan? I mean, you know, being a musician and you're arranging for pan, I want to hear Clive Bradley's version of pan.
I look at pan as the most modern instrument which has been invented because there is nothing new invented since that. Now, the pan in itself will have deformities, it will have irregularities, and I suppose that is what gives this particular sound, because this thing is made out of a drum, which was not originally intended to be a musical instrument. So it's due to the inventiveness of the man, whoever invented the pan. There are ongoing arguments as to whoever it was. But the fact is that this pan is a unique piece of equipment, is a unique instrument where the notes are not separate from each other. They're actually connected. It's one drum, and an attempt has been made to separate the notes by putting that groove that you see in between the notes there. Now, of course, you know that is physically impossible. You can't separate the notes when they're still connected, even though you have grooved the pan. But the groove provides a certain sort of barrier between one note and the next, which enables the tuner to activate just one particular section of the pan in trying to get a particular note. And he keeps working on this thing until he gets the basic note that he wants and the overtones that he is particularly, he likes particularly, because every pan, every tuner has his own particular overtones that he likes. Now, these overtones in every pan are going to be different. I don't think there are any two tenor pans or any two second pans or any two kind of pans at all which would sound the same way, right?
Although they have the same note.
Although the same note, same tuner, the drum might be bought from the same people, but no two notes are going to have the same physical characteristics. Scientifically, they're never going to be the same. Never. Now, this now is what combined, you got 28 tenors in a section, right? Now, every A is, if you want to get right down to be very, very narrow-minded about it, every A is a different A. The basic tone, A, is going to be there. But the overtones that the notes will have are going to be slightly different. But when you combine 28 of those things, what is going to be most dominant would be A, which is everybody's A is A. And that is what gives a combined Steelpan its proper tone, that you can get that A. Of course, you would know that there's a very vast difference between hearing one pan and 28 pans playing together.
Mm-hmm. So you feel, therefore, that standardization may not be that a necessary or a successful movement?
Well, standardization, as I think of it, is a very necessary movement. And when I say standardization, I mean in the placing of the notes on the pan, and not in the tone of the pan or the, like two saxophones sound different. You just got to change the mouthpiece, change the reading. You get two different sounding people, right? So it's not that you want every pan to sound the same way. What you want is that every pan will have the same note in the same place, so that an attempt could be made to do literature relevant to the playing of the pan, where anybody could take up a book when here in Japan and Russia, and it's going to be the same pan, just like a piano. If you go to Germany, you pick up a piano, you know piano, you can play it, right? Yeah. But if you got a pan with an A on the right side, and then next week you got a pan with a B on the left side, and all, it would be very difficult. So you won't be able to write any literature, and standardization is absolutely necessary if you want to provide literature. And then if you want to get more of an involvement with the school teachers and the teachers of music in the pan, standardization is a very important thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little about your role with Desperados. How long have you been with Desperados?
I started with them in 1968, so actually this is 82. It'll be close on 14 years. And I missed 1 year, which was 1981, which was last year, which had some educational commitments which did not permit my coming to do any work at all.
Mm-hmm. And how has your life been with them? I mean, the life of an arranger, a man who, like you said, ain't no pan man. How did guys view you in your role there? What's the relationship? How did guys view you?
Actually, when my first encounter with the band, it was a friend of mine called Roy Cape, who is a saxophone player, and he introduced me to Rudolph Charles, whose name was only just a name, to me before, although I had been involved with small steel bands, but nothing of the scope of the Desperados. And my first few encounters with the band were pretty frightening in that, not scary, frightening in that I wasn't used to dealing with such a large band and with the people behind the bridge, as they're saying, because in those days there was a big thing. You going behind the bridge, you crazy, Like I only used to go up Lavender Hill on the 13th of whatever month that the Catholic people used to go up there, and I used to try to make sure that we go up in a crowd, no one die. I mean, this, you read in the papers and you hear stuff, you're not stupid, you're not going there. And it took me a while to get used to how the folks were and how they think, how they operate, what the things that they value, and which is very important when you're working in that community. You must know the values of the people. And I pretty soon got to realize that the whole thing is a community effort. It's a very close-knit community on the hill there. And they might fight among each other, but don't go and try to fight with any of them. That is the whole thing on the hill. The very together type of people. The old come out and the nights when the band is practicing, and they would come and bring coffee and food and chit-chat and encouragement and comments about the tune. They're not musicians, but they have their comments to make. And you must listen. And there are people there who are so emotionally involved with the thing that, it hurts me. As a matter of fact, with all the controversy that surrounded this year's Panorama, I was very upset about how the whole thing affected the people in the community. Not me that much, because I'm used to this thing 14 years, and I've been playing music 27. So I get used to that sort of thing. But there are people there. The people up there are not used to losing. They're not used to losing at all. They don't like to lose. Now, if they lose, and it's a good loss, they don't say nothing. But if they know that they didn't lose, and it's not a just decision, they would kick up a storm about it, and they would be very, very upset. This would be the whole hill, not a couple of people or just the guys along the Steelpan, but the taxi driver, the guy making the snow cone, the fellow who moving the garbage, the lady passing with a bucket of water on her head, a man coming up with 2 bags of nuts. Everybody, the kids, everybody gets involved in this thing. Everybody they think and they do have a right to make a comment about the music, either good or bad, and everybody does it. And that's how Lavender Hill is. So I have grown used to this, and I have grown used to answering and talking to the people, and I have a very, very good relationships with everybody. I don't have an enemy there. I mean, everybody likes me. I could go up there and disappear for a couple of weeks and be happy, you know. Yeah. So, and it's a very nice place to be. Yeah.
I have visited it, and from history tells us that that hill has been a community of slaves that came from Africa and remained there. And there are certain speculations surrounding the pan, the drum, the shango, and all of that. And looking at this today, I can certainly see the manifestation of all of that existing there. I see how they treat Rudolph Charles like he's a god for the effort and work that he has put into. I see how they respect the pan men. What role, Desperados is a trend setter, and you help them to be that. Do you see yourself as a trendsetter individually?
Well, actually, I would like to think of myself as a trendsetter because I had problems in the music world before with being too far ahead, you know, not being conceited or anything like this. But, you know, it was admitted that what I was trying to do was too far ahead for the people involved. Now, as far as the band is concerned, Rudolph himself is a very inventive guy. He likes to keep moving. He likes to keep doing things. He doesn't like to come every year. This year is 1982, and next year is 1983, and 1983 shouldn't be just like 1982. And this is a very good thing because this is what makes for progress. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, but it's the only way you can do something new is to try something new. Now, I, on the other hand, as far as the arrangements go, I always like to try something new. And the moment that I had discovered the format, a certain format, the way how to arrange, the way how this panorama thing works, what the people like to hear, what the steel band can do, what relationship I can have between conventional music and the pan music. From the time I found that out in 1970, I used that to the full advantage, you know. I just go and just do it. The guys know what I come to do. They always empathize with what I try to do. And I get a lot of cooperation from everybody.
Right. You mentioned relationship between conventional music and pan music. Can you explore a little on that?
You see, there are certain limitations that the pan has. The latest pan that I saw as a tenor pan had around 32, 33 notes. Now, quite a few of them wouldn't be useful, except maybe the top 2 or 3 notes. They're going to be very squeaky, they're going to be very brittle, but suppose in certain sections of music combined with other pans, they could be used. But the conventional piano has 88 notes, most of which can be used. Then the electronic facility that you can put into a conventional instrument, it is not very easy to use with pan, because a pan, there's not enough experimentation that has gone on with the pan that could be used in doing electronic stuff with it, you know. And not that it might be a better sound, but then you can create a new sound as some sort of variety or some sort of scientific something from the pan with the scientific stuff that they have. But conventional instrument. But again, the pan has an additional advantage in that a pan man can hold a note for as long as he can roll that. A saxophone player can't do that. You know. And there are other limitations. And remember, as I said before, that the pan is a whole set of notes and they're connected to each other. So you do get notes leaking into each other. So when you try to record a pan as a solo instrument, if it is not a very good pan, this defect makes it a little difficult to record. Mm-hmm. And of course, the apron sound, that is the piece that's down the side of the pan, is also very important too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This year's recording, the 1982 album that you released recently, I think was a real fantastic recording. Did you do anything different in terms of arrangements to make the song different?
Well, actually, I have to say a lot of thanks to Robert Greenwich, a tenor player who is based out in LA. He actually helped me a lot with this 1982 effort, and he did the 1981 effort. And he did a great deal of work with me on this tune. Actually, there's a certain part in this particular arrangement which I got to, and I said, Robert, look, 2 or 32 bars. Yeah, I went down the street. I told him, Hugh, just arranged this part. It was a solo just after the Montuno. And Robert helped me out a lot in doing that part of the tune. And then the guys again helped me quite a lot in mistakes that they make. Sometimes a guy would make a mistake, and I would accept it because it probably would be better than what I did. And in this particular tune, a lot of that is there.
Now you're talking about the tune you arranged for the Panorama.
This one here, this 1982 something.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was talking about the album, the recent album.
Oh.
But let's keep on that tune now. We'll go back to the album. Mm-hmm. This particular tune, why choose Party? I mean, Party to me sounded like a very difficult tune, but you had written it. You know Party. Was that the reason why?
No. This thing goes back a little ways. It's a little long story. Let me see if I can see it for you. Now, this is the 4th album I've been working on with Nelson. We both live in Queens out in New York, and we're close together. And I coordinate with him on his work. And for the past couple of years, I've been trying to contribute to his album by doing a tune for him, because he's not a very fluent composer like some of the guys are, and he's willing to take help from people, and he used to get help before. But now, we both did the album, and I usually try to do a tune for him. And this tune, I Want to Party Tonight, it came out of that. It's just a tune that I put to make up 6 tunes on the album. You know, we had never thought of that doing anything. I remember him asking me one time, he said, what do I have to do with a song to try to get the pan men to play it? So when I tried to explain him the certain qualities a tune must have, blah, blah, but I didn't go into too much detail because, he wasn't composing at the time. Now, when I came down here, as usual with every steel band, most steel bands, they're trying to find out which tune is the best tune to go for Panorama. And we had difficulty choosing a tune, and they had chosen Pan Explosion, which everybody said, well, Lil Kitchener composed that tune for Desperados. Right. But I have done 10 Kitchener tunes for Panorama. And Kitchener tunes are not all that different from each other, so that I can find a variety of stuff to do with the tunes. And I am getting to the point where I am running out of ideas as far as his progressions are. You have a limited number of progressions. So I really was not too keen on doing Pan Explosion. For that reason, although I love Kitchener's music. Okay. Now, nobody was suggesting any other tune to me. And I thought about Crazy, Rudolph suggested Explainer. We were there fishing around for a tune to do. But when I had come to Trinidad in November, I had known the Nelson tunes because I worked on the album. So then obviously the first tunes I'm going to do. So I did Party, and the other tune that Nelson had was called Jenny, and a couple of pop tunes. Suddenly one morning, Ralph comes here very early, he and a couple of guys, and said, we're going with Party. And that's how we went with it. Yeah. From looking for a good tune to go with. Yeah. And I had neglected to tell them originally that was my tune, because the album didn't have my name on it through a mistake. So, and I didn't want it to look like I was going to force my tune in them in any way. I just told them that was a tune from Nelson's album. Right. So it's only when Rudolph asked me whose tune it was, then I told him. Nobody knew. You see? Right? So that's how it worked out. A lot of people have a lot of ideas about how it came about and stuff, but this is the truth I'm telling you there. So I never remotely expected that little piece of music, which I took about half an hour to write, to compose, that would cause so much controversy, go to high court and all this bacchanal and thing. I'm not used to that, so I'm a decent boy. Right? So that's the story of it.
Right. What does it take to write a tune for a band to play for Carnival, as Nelson was asking?
I think, working with a Steelpan for a number of years, I think that to play a tune on the road, it doesn't take too much to make a tune. A simple tune will do. But for a band to go to Panorama, one must remember that the guy has 8 to 10 minutes of music to do with what is originally half a minute of music. Now you got to come down there in different places in different ways, but he still can't get away from the tune. Now if the tune doesn't have enough guts that he can dig out parts and work on, it's going to be extremely difficult for him to do that and still keep the interest of the people and the judges out there. So what you got to do is to look for a tune that has enough guts, which is basically pretty in itself, a catchy chorus which has easy recall that the crowd can help you along, because people say that the crowd has nothing to do with Panorama. They're making one of the biggest mistakes in the world, because if I'm playing there and I see the crowd out there reacting very nice to what I'm doing, I'm going to play better. I'm going to keep sucking it to them, right? Mm-hmm. So the crowd does have an effect out there, you know, because you can't believe that the Panorama will have the same result if they only judges on Pan. Right. People wouldn't. So this is what I do. Just look in there to see the nice tune and the parts that you can work on. And then, of course, again, your repertoire of phrases, phraseology, chords, chord progressions, modulations, counter melodies, counterpoints, solos, and you put all the nicest parts together and you get the tune. Well, you have to think about a certain sort of, a big intro, then you state the tune, then you show off a little bit, and maybe you show off a little more, and then you give the people something to dance to, and then you settle them down and make them interested, show off now and show them what the pan can do, and then you come and you build up and get a nice plateau and get a nice ending. And that's my basic pattern. I use it all the time. I mean, I'm pretending. It's the same thing I do in every year, you know, but just you got to do the same thing differently.